Elina Carter, the well-known defense lawyer at Harborview Courthouse, walked carefully by way of the marble lobby, her mind already focused on the difficult task that lay ahead. Once welcomed as a clever businessman, Mark Johnson was now worried about a crime that had shocked the city. The press took advantage of the chance to present Mark as a villain, but Elina had been educated in the dangers of believing anything they read in the headlines. Elina looked over the case file in her roomy office with a view of the city skyline. Her thoughts were consumed by Mark's voice and his needy cry of innocence. Elina felt a strong sense of sympathy, even though the other employees expressed their doubts because they were afraid of the protests that would come from representing such an unpopular person. She supported the idea of a proper process and believed each person should have a fair trial. The meeting with Mark had been important. There was an indication of hope in his eyes, one that matched Elina's dedication to justice. It was not just about legal strategy. It was also about humanity and standing up for what was right in the face of impossible challenges. Elina's feeling became stronger as she went over the evidence, which included timelines, forensic reports, and witness statements. There were mistakes and gaps in the prosecution's story that demanded more investigation. Although she was aware that the path ahead would be difficult, she was committed to finding the truth that lay hidden between many layers of unfairness and theories. As Elina got deeper into the case, days turned into nights. To understand the forensic evidence, she studied a lot of police reports, carefully read witness statements, and spoke with specialists. With every new detail, she got a little bit closer to knowing all the details of Mark's situation. But in the middle of the careful examination, doubts started to arise. The order of events was not completely in line with Mark's excuse. Elina was struggling with feelings of tension between her own moral values and her loyalty to her client. She was aware that her choice would have an important effect on both Mark's future and her reputation in the field of law. Documents lying all over her desk and legal covers filled with written notes turned her office into a place of disorder. More pressure was created by the media excitement outside the courthouse. The continuous backing of Elina's lawyers gave her strength when she continually failed. Elina took unexpected breaks in her search for the truth. Under the well-maintained exterior of Mark's public character, she found dark secrets such as competition between friends and family members and accounting mistakes. With every truth, her loyalty was put to the test, and her sense of justice was called into question. Elina learned how to get through a network of half-truths and fraud in the late hours of the night and early morning. The moral problems were a difficult burden for her. Should she report her findings to Mark so she might lose his trust and compromise their defense plan? Should she proceed anyhow, believing that the legal system will ultimately uncover the whole truth? The courtroom, a battle zone where dishonesty and truth clashed, was called. Elina Carter came to the junction, ready to show the two-edged sword of justice. As the evidence grew and her feelings became more mixed, Elina called her legal team together to plan. As they went over every aspect of the case, the tension in her meeting space sounded. Every participant offered a different viewpoint that tested Elina's resolve, as their conversations included everything from checking forensic reports to breaking down evidence provided by witnesses. Elina became more involved in the case's details as they discussed what to do next. Her thoughts shifted between her own beliefs and professional duty, making her wonder if her search for the truth supported the defense plan she was creating. The level of media attention increased and brought the trial of Mark to a level above and beyond the courtroom. Elina took relief in her alone time for self-analysis during all of it. She went back to the early exchanges she had with Mark in an attempt to uncover the truth beneath his lies. Her resolve to learn the whole truth, even if it meant facing difficult facts, was only boosted by every piece of evidence, no matter how shocking it might be. Elina entered the courtroom with her high heels echoing against the shiny floors, indicating the beginning of the judgment day. Her excitement was clear as the judge's eye kept on her. Elina settled in for the legal fight, with Mark sitting next to her. Focusing on a picture of Mark as an intentional criminal, the defense made strong opening arguments. Looking at the storyline of the case was the main focus of Elina's defense plan. Carefully inspecting each witness, she exposed errors that called into question the reliability of her statements. Elina carefully destroyed every piece of evidence that was used against Mark, creating an atmosphere of nervousness throughout the courtroom. New difficulties did, however, appear as the trial went on. Elina was being challenged at every turn by the prosecution's more and more forceful replies. Her ability to handle challenges and responses with strong belief was put to the test. Elina's fight for justice was made more difficult by the media's clarification of every move made during the trial outside of court. The turning point that would affect how the trial played out showed up in the tension. Elina realized an important piece of evidence that provided new information about the case. Phone records that had been ignored before. As she gave what she found, the courtroom fell silent. Despite the serious possibilities, her voice was still stable. With a mixture of relief and fear in his eyes, Mark's response was muted. Elina was aware of this moment's importance as a turning point that could change the decision of the jury. She struggled with the effects of the recently discovered evidence, though, and doubts broke at her morality. The media craze outside the courtroom grew louder, focusing on every turn of the trial. Elina found herself in the middle of a storm, with the cruel focus of public opinion looking at every move she made. She knew that the final decision would depend on how convincing the evidence was. So she continued in her search for the truth in the face of the increasing pressure. Elina's belief was put to the test as she faced the difficulties of the courtroom. She reacted with a carefully planned argument that supported Mark's innocence by mixing together proof and supporting data. But there were still questions hanging in the background of her thoughts, an ongoing doubt that could have weakened her confidence. Elina was still managing the trial's result when she left the courtroom. The trial's decision was expected, and each aspect of the case was looked at in detail in the headlines as media attention grew. In the middle of the confusion, Elina found comfort in a few moments from the disorder, thinking back on the effects of what was happening during the trial. One late evening, Elina returned to her office and spent hours looking over case files and decisions from the courts in an attempt to find information that would tip the balance in her favor. No matter what came in her path, she remained solid in her belief that justice must be served. Elina and her legal team were getting ready for the defense's closing arguments as the trial moved into its important stage. The courtroom was filled with excitement as Elina took the stand to make her final statement. Because of the importance of the situation, her voice remained solid. Her case for the defense was carefully presented, highlighting the errors in the prosecution's proof and providing fresh insight into Mark's excuse. As she asked the jury to decide all the evidence fairly and judiciously, her words echoed throughout the courtroom, demanding attention. Elina's resolve was evident throughout her closing remarks. It was a ray of hope in the clouds of doubt. She presented a convincing case for Mark's innocence, begging the jury to see past the defense's doubts and appeal to their sense of fairness. As the jury thought about it, tensions outside the courtroom were high, waiting for the decision that would close Mark's fate and establish Elina as a truth seeker and integrity advocate. Elina's mind raced. The jury returned to their seats, the weight of their decision visible on their faces, and the courtroom fell silent. When the judge called on the foreperson to deliver the decision, Elina's heart banged in her chest. The foreperson's two words, "not guilty," echoed throughout the courtroom, making time seem to stop. Elina looked at Mark, who was breathing heavily and had tears in his eyes. She felt happy. Elina's trust in her client's innocence was confirmed by the court's decision, which was a victory for justice. The journey was far from over, as Elina realized as she stood next to Mark amid the cheers of the courtroom. She had to face moral problems and legal challenges during the trial, which tried her resolve and formed her into the lawyer she is today. Following the trial, Elina thought back on the things she had learned and how the case had affected her personal and professional lives. She went back to important events, such as finding fresh evidence or making closing arguments, which influenced her views on justice and the complicated workings of the legal system. Slowly, the media excitement gave way to a new respect for Elina's determination and dedication. Both clients and colleagues celebrated her, accepting her as a strong player in the legal field. However, even with the praise, Elina was still dealing with the emotional impact of the struggle. She was thinking about the moral lines she had crossed and questioning the sacrifices made in the name of justice. Above all, she took comfort in the knowledge that her dedication to the truth had paid off, an example of the strength of honesty in the face of difficulty. Elina took the lessons she had learned from the experience with her as she looked forward. Her journey of improving yourself and recovering strengthened her belief in protecting the rights of the helpless and the basic principles of justice. Elina faced the challenges ahead with newfound energy, knowing that every case would serve as a memorial to the ongoing past of her search for justice